You're listening to Dark Matter Radio with your host, Ronnie. Welcome to Dark Matter Radio with your host, Ronnie McLean. We appreciate your support out there. Make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel and listen to us on all the other different platforms that we might be getting on as well. Facebook is just one of them, and YouTube is just another one of them. And we have all different types of things. Go to our website, www.i-m-indigenous.org. We're going to be putting a lot more of our programs and shows on there. In fact, we're working on a live streaming program to be able to do live streaming and to be able to try to change over from the format itself. We're also on Blog Talk Radio. We're trying to use that a little bit until we get this other streaming program going on. And still having a lot of difficulties with that. Yes, we are still having a lot of difficulties with that. So that's going though, but that's all right. And then we're climbing up the status here, And sometimes we have to just kind of slow it down. I know there's a lot of things that are going on, and have a conversation as to what is going on with America, with immigration, with our taxes, with this debt, $22 trillion. So we are going to enter into a conversation with an elder brother Karl, Bryant, from the Baltimore area, originally from New York and down South Carolina, etc., that whole entire area. And very, very good wealth of knowledge. We need to listen to our elders because they can really teach us a lot of things. And today, a talk, world politics, Donald Trump, the Democratic Party, Republican Party, and how people actually feel about these things and how it's really affecting us. So let us enter into a conversation that's already on the way. We thank you for listening. This is Ronnie McLean for Dark Matter Radio. Elder Brother Karl, Bryant.
By slave labor. And not just China, but Indonesia and all the rest of them. They got sweatshops all over the world. And they're paying those people next to nothing. They're making better, they're doing better than they did before those companies came. But still, they're working at such a low level that when they bring this stuff here without tariffs, they're putting Americans out of work, and American companies that try to stay here and employ Americans.
Yeah, but a lot of that stuff can't be. I mean, a lot of that stuff can't get passed unless the Democrats go along with it too, because it takes both parties to pass the bill.
Well, it's like this. They changed it so that most of this here stuff, all they need is a majority. That's why the Senate has fallen apart. And if they have their way, they want to pass everything with just a majority vote. And if they do that, then the Senate is going to be nothing. It's not going to be much more than a poor shadow of the House of Representatives. And I don't know if we really want that, especially since all those red states, or those states with less than 1 million people in them, have 2 senators, just like the states with 28, 30 million people in it.
Yeah.
So, if they keep it up, we're going to have to take a look at the Senate and start making it more representative, rather than two representatives from every state. Because if they're going to act like the House, then they need to be controlled, man like the House.
Yeah, somebody brought that up when I was in Florida with the Black Caucus, the Democratic Black Caucus. They brought that up, stating that, they brought it up because the population of the United States has almost doubled since the time that they passed the Constitution, and nothing's really changed since then. And they still have the same amount of representatives. So they're saying that the districts are underrepresented, underrepresented by the population of Congress and the House of Representatives.
No, not necessarily, because what they've done, that's why they do apportionment every 10 years, reapportionment. And what happens is that they take and they shift as the population shifts across the states. They take representatives from seats from the places that had the large population. They move them to the places where population are increasing.
Yeah. Well.
And huh?
Nope, I'm listening.
Okay. And so actually, what they're doing is you got enough representation. You can't just, what they do is they increase the number of people that each representative increase. The problem is with the Senate, where you take some of those Midwestern states, some of them don't have 1 million people in them, but they got as much political power in the Senate as a state with 20 times the amount of people they have.
Yeah.
And that's not right. And if you look, most of those states that don't have no people in them are Republican states, or controlled by Republicans.
Like Montana or the Dakotas, those guys up there.
Mm-hmm. And I can't blame them for not having many people. Who the hell want to go up there and live under those conditions?
It's a beautiful country.
Yeah, big sky. And the last thing I want over my head when I go to bed at night is a big sky. Especially in the wintertime.
That is true. That is true.
But what's happening is they're destroying the middle class. And I've been to a lot of foreign countries and third world countries especially, because being in the military, that seems to be where you go mostly. And I've seen how it is in third world countries. Basically, you got two classes of people. You got the rich and you got the poor. And everybody else, that is a rich or poor or moving between the two,
Yeah.
But you have very little middle class. Very little, Now, I don't know what China's doing. Well, that's the way it is.
China's stealing all the technology.
Oh, yeah, because, that's another problem, A lot of that technology was created not by these companies, but by the United States government. A lot of that technology is defense-related. And the government had them design this technology for weapons of war and stuff like that, or for systems, space systems. A lot of people don't, excuse me. There was one story is about the space shuttle program.
Yeah.
They voted down funding for it, and in one of these here red states, they voted it down and all that kind of stuff. And they had to cut the number of shuttles, and which I can't remember the state it was, but they had the people worked in this machine shop, and they made highly specialized screws and nuts and bolts and stuff, especially designed for the shuttle, the stresses and all that stuff. And they got laid off. These people couldn't understand why they got laid off. Well, they voted against the program that was paying their check. There's a lot of stuff going on that people are benefiting from the fact that we got a government and the government's paying their paycheck. Basically, because of the contracts the government gives to these corporations.
That's right.
And these dummies don't know it. and they're making votes, and they're voting for people that go in there and cut these programs for them.
Yeah, we're going to downsize right down to my job.
Yeah, well, look at what they're doing in this country to civil servants, you know? Every time you turn around, they jacking up these civil servants and you know, cutting their pay and putting them on furlough and all that kind of stuff, like Trump just did, you know?
Yeah.
The guy came through here today when I was telling you about trying to rip me off with the log cutter, you know? He's a civil servant, you know? Well, he's got this business on the side. And he said that when it happened, he ended up furloughed, you know? And shoot, you know, these guys don't seem to realize that, you know, well, people don't seem to realize that the people that they're shooting at are their neighbors. Some of them make their own kids when they start screwing around with civil servants because they're all over the place.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so, you know, they're always crying, the civil servants are getting too much. Well, they weren't getting too much when I was a civil servant because we were getting less than the civilian people were getting, you know. But we had job security and the promise of a retirement program,
Yeah,
stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of people hung in there until they could retire, and once they retired, they was set, you know. But you had to hang in there until you could. These people trying to make it hard for them to even make it from day to day, you know, while they're working. So a lot of Americans are running around here eating up this stuff about both parties. It ain't both parties. It's the Republicans. They sold their soul to Wall Street and the guy with the money, and it's affecting all the rest of us. You know, the decisions that's being made. You know? It's stupid for them to take and sell. It's stupid for them to take all their money, or should I say all our industry, and send it to China, and then let them bring that stuff back here and not pay any tariffs on it.
Well, Trump is making them pay like 200% tariffs on it right now until they get this deal done.
Trump's an idiot. He don't know what the hell he's doing. He started a trade war, and the first thing China did was put tariffs on the very people that support him, the farmers. Half of those guys have lost their market, and they'll never get it back because China went to Brazil and Europe, Africa to get their soybeans from now on. And you think those guys are going to give the market up? Just because the United States say, "Hey, I wanna play again." Be realistic, man. I wouldn't.
So what if we just stopped sending our stuff over to China to be made and just made it here? What would that do to China?
What we need to do. Huh?
What would that do to China?
Well, the fact of the matter is that we've done this for so long now that China's coming back and buying up stuff in this country. You know?
Well, a lot of the land that they're giving over to China is to pay off the debt. We still owe China a hell of a few $1 trillion.
Well, we still owe them a few trillion. We haven't paid off no debt with China. You know, we got two kinds of debt with China. Or should I say, we have two types of debt. We have the money, the national debt, where the government borrows money to make ends meet.
Yep.
And the reason they do that is because they took and gave all these tax cuts to the rich, and they're paying out all this money and all this welfare to these red states also. You know, and government contracts and military bases and stuff in the middle of nowhere. You know, which is where we want these bases, in the middle of nowhere. You know, but there's the other deficit, and it's the trade deficit. And they talk about, you know, we're trying to get our federal deficit down to half a trillion dollars a year, or that's 200 and some $trillion. They'd like to get it down to that point. But the trade deficit for at least 20 years, 15, 20 years, has been close to $750 billion a year.
Yeah, that's true.
You know?
Yep.
And that's where we're running into the problem. We had a big trade deficit with Japan for a while, and we still do. But it's not as big as it used to be, because I think China's moved in the first place. But the fact of the matter is that they started complaining about the Japanese. They had to do something with all those dollars. And the Japanese started coming back to this country and buying up the companies and stuff, buying up property, real estate, and all that kind of stuff. Remember in the late 80s and the 90s when they were so worried about the Japanese buying up New York and all the rest of that stuff?
That's right, yeah, yep.
Well, China's running around doing the same thing now. You know, because they got all these American dollars and they need to do something. But the Chinese are kind of vicious. Unlike the Japanese they had their trade deficit and everything with us, and they took and they used that money to buy stuff in the United States. But the Chinese are trying to stop the dollar from being the unit of trade in the world.
The reserve currency.
That's right. They're trying to change that. And they're with China and Russia. And we got some other enemies out there that are trying to work on that too.
Iran, Venezuela. Well, Venezuela's an enemy of our own doing, because they had to, when the United States started getting back into the oil industry, and your friend over there, Mr. Obama, President Obama, wanted Iran to get back into the oil industry. We had to cut somebody out, and they chose Venezuela.
Well, I don't know about all of that.
That's why they got all over Venezuela and destroyed them until they couldn't ship out any more oil.
Well, I don't know, because Venezuela did a lot of good stuff for the United States too. Because down in New York, they were selling oil cheap, especially when it was real high in the country, you know. And so they were selling cheap gas to the United States and all that kind of stuff. Maybe that pissed off some oil people, and the oil people decided they move on them. You know?
Yeah.
You have to understand that we got two governments here. We really do. And one is business, and the other one is running the country. But business is probably this secondary government that business do, and that's the rich. They're the ones that's really calling the shots. And they've moved into government with all their donations and everything. They're trying to bring the government around to doing whatever their bidding is. We got serious problems here in this country, and the reason we got serious problems, you know, both parties take some, but the Republican Party got so sloppy that they've been taken over almost completely by big business and the wealthy. And they don't care about what happens to the country. All they care about is the power that it gives them so that they can feather their own nest. You know? Excuse me, I was talking, Reggie and I was talking about this here thing with the automobile industry not too long ago.
Oh,
you know?
Yeah.
And, you know, you look at what's really going on here. GM and Ford and maybe Chrysler have just about conceded the automobile industry to foreigners. They're going to make trucks now.
Yeah, they're stopping making all kinds of personal vehicles, they said.
Yep. And what do they think is going to happen once they run them, these foreign companies run them out of the automobile industry, and they're going to start concentrating on trucks and run them out of that too. You know? And I remember when I was a child, my father used to tell me all the time that the most important industry in the world, in the country, was the automobile industry, because it used so many other industries.
Yeah. Yep.
It supported so many other industries. And so, you know, he used to explain to me different types of stuff that's in the automobile and all that kind of stuff. You know, that's why it was so important, because it
Parts,
employed so many
tires,
people.
rubber, aluminum,
Huh?
steel,
Yeah.
all of those
Mhm.
things.
Oil, plastics, everything. Carpet, glass, You know.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people don't seem to realize how all this stuff is supported. But then these Republicans started allowing them to send all these here industries overseas, and all this stuff is being imported now. The American car, it used to say that to be an American car had to be 80-some% American parts.
That's right.
You know? I heard not too long ago they were saying that 45 to 50% American parts is considered an American car now. You know, things are changing, man.
Yeah, it doesn't look too good. That's why I was telling people with this other stuff that I got going on here, we better hurry up and do what we got to do, because with $22 trillion in debt and growing, and almost, $50 trillion in promised debt, we ain't going to have no money left.
Well, it's supposed to. Well, the national debt is going to take away everything. But the real problem is that they allow the wealthy not to pay taxes. You know, if the wealthy don't pay the middle class or the poor enough money for them to pay the taxes, then you got to go where the money is and tax the wealthy. You know, but they won't do it. And the wealthy, they are when they get they're running these companies, and think about it. Is there anybody up there that's worth 500 times the salary of the lowest employee? Is there anybody up there in management that's worth that?
No, but it doesn't really matter if everybody's making their fair share of money and being paid what they're worth. I said it really doesn't matter if everybody's making their fair share of money and getting paid what they're worth.
It does matter. It does matter, because nobody's worth that much. That's taking too much money out of the economy and putting it in their own pocket. That's taking too much. That's what they're doing. Basically, is raiding the treasuries of these companies. Sometimes some of these here executives. I remember a case in Florida. They were talking. I think we're talking about the governor of Florida, now Congress senator from Florida. What's his name? I think it starts with a C.
Oh, I know you, Chris, Charlie, somebody, Charlie. I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, well, I think he was in the pharmaceuticals. He had a pharmaceutical company.
Yeah.
And they talk about, they didn't name them by name, but they said this here pharmaceutical company down in Florida made $1 billion in profit. And that year, the salary of the chief executive was $100 million. That's 10% of the profit. Tell me he was worth that much for a year.
No, the guy's, his name was, I think his name was Charlie Crist.
Yeah, Chris. Something like that. Yeah. But he made 10% of the profit of the company.
Wow.
You know, and wages and compensation. You know, and that's what all of these executives are doing. They're raiding the treasuries of these companies. And then they got it set up so that they only pay less than 15% or less in tax, where people like you and I are paying 26 to 32.
Yeah, if not more. When you start talking about you got to pay for gas, you got to pay for clothes, you got to pay for all this other stuff that's taxed.
Yeah, but we're talking about federal here.
Okay. Yep.
You know, because the Republicans like to point out that people are paying about 40-some% of their income in taxes, and it's probably too. But that's state tax, you know, not federal tax. You know, the states come in and they tax you right on top of your federal tax. And what was so nice was that you got a chance to deduct that state tax from your federal tax. You can't do that no more. You know that. This here tax cut out a lot of that stuff. Also fixed it so that if you own a house, that you can't deduct more than $10,000 a year in interest and taxes and stuff. A lot of people crying in their milk, especially people that live on Long Island.
Yeah, because Long Island, they're paying anywhere between $10,000 to $30,000 in taxes for a house.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so, think about it, you know. The wealthy got to start paying their share of taxes so that we don't have to put everything on the people or on the states. Prior to the 2001 tax cut that Bush came up with,
Yep.
the country had a surplus, and they were paying off. They had balanced the budget under Clinton, and they were paying off the national debt, paying it down.
Well, you got to remember what Clinton did. Clinton was the first one who cut out all the welfare stuff and put all that money back into the coffers.
No.
And he also, wait a minute, he also put on the largest
Just a minute.
energy tariffs ever seen in history.
You're wrong. Clinton signed the bill. It was Newt Gingrich, the Republicans, that did this.
I tell you, you always have a way of blaming the Republicans. That is absolute, but that's true.
I listened to these, what was going on in government and how the Republicans talk that stuff about cutting taxes and all that kind of stuff, and how people on welfare were the boogeymen, getting all that stuff. But you notice that when they took all those people off of welfare and took that money from them, they didn't cut on the soil banks and stuff like that.
No, they didn't. And it was a Reagan plan, and that tax plan that they put in there that Clinton signed was actually a Reagan plan.
Yeah, and Reagan, under him, he was talking about trickle down. And the first thing they found out is that when you give a tax cut, it never pays for itself, and the money don't trickle down either. You know, but they still run around talking about it because every time somebody says start talking about taxes, they call them a socialist, and when someone calls you a socialist, you're supposed to go find yourself a hole and pull the top in on top of you.
Well, you want to know what I find that's interesting with all this debt stuff is that over the past, 10 years, we spent almost $5 trillion in war. Plus, on top of that...
Who invented that war?
Well...
Bush, Republicans.
Well, we were attacked.
Huh?
We were attacked. You're absolutely right. They did invent that war. But what I'm saying is that $5 trillion, at least... And then it's been consistent between $650 to $850 billion a year in military spending.
Yeah, but that's because of the wars and all the veterans and disabled veterans too that they're creating.
What about that $2 trillion? They were talking about $2 to $3 trillion. Just before the Pentagon got that fake plane blown into it, that they couldn't find, and then the next day the Pentagon got blown up.
Yeah, but
It was about $2 trillion. They said that's a lot of money. That's before the war started.
What I'm trying to tell you is this, you know, like the Republicans did all this here stuff, not the Democrats. They're the ones that decided they were going to go to Afghanistan. And Afghanistan is where armies go to die.
Yeah, that is true.
Know? There hasn't been an army that's been sent to Afghanistan yet that has come back happy or victorious.
Yeah,
you know?
That's
the
true.
Russians went in there, ruined the Russian empire, you know? And so I guess we could do it better than the Russians. If the Russians could do it, we could do it better. So
Yeah, we sure did.
We go in.
We spent.
The fact of the matter is, we could have won in Afghanistan, you know. But the problem is that they got sidetracked and they went into Iraq, and that's where the problem was. When they went into Iraq, it was like they took the balance out of the gyroscope because Saddam Hussein was the one that was keeping the Middle East balanced.
Yeah, that's true.
And when they got rid of him, all the rest of this here stuff that we're dealing with today was created. The whole Middle East is unbalanced. Even Israel. And with this here Trump, that idiot and his Republican friends, when they went in there and declared that Jerusalem was the capital of Israel, they threw the peace program or the peace effort in the Middle East threw it into how would you say? Well, they screwed it all up.
Yeah, they turned everything upside down.
To come.
Yeah.
And the Middle East, all this terrorism and all that stuff was caused because of the forming of Israel in the first place. You know, in the Middle East, all that stuff was caused because of Israel. They allowed the Israelis to develop their own country, and they allowed them to just go in there and mess with the Palestinians and take their land and all that kind of stuff. And that's what started all of this. It started back in the 40s. You know, probably before then, because the Israelis were running around doing the same thing that these terrorists are doing now. They were doing that in that area against the British and stuff.
Yeah, that is true, because the British did not sign off on the Israelis forming their own state.
They didn't?
No, they didn't sign off on it. I had to study that for all this decolonization stuff. Yeah, they didn't sign off on it. I was like, why didn't they sign off on it? Well, because they were at odds with those Jewish people.
Yeah, and not only that, when the British Empire started to fall apart, and the French and the Italians and all of them that had these empires, all these colonies over there, when they started divesting of these colonies, they threw people together that couldn't live together. And turn them into countries, and that's why we got all the problems. Like Iraq is a bastard country.
Yep.
All of those countries over there. I shouldn't say bastard country, but when I say bastard country is because they threw together all these different people that never could live together, never did live together, didn't believe the same things, even though they're the same religion. They were on either side of the religions. And so forth. Yeah,
they created those lines. They created country lines that never existed. That's why Iraq said that. What was it? What was that country that they invaded? Was their 36 province or something like that? That was. I forgot the name of that province. It was.
Kurdistan.
No, it wasn't Kurdistan.
It was never Kurdistan, but they wanted. Well, the Kurds were promised a country back in World War I believe. You know.
Yeah.
And they lied to them and didn't give it to them. And so you got the Kurds, and you got Kurds you get them in Turkey, you got them in Syria, you got them in Iraq, you got them in Iran. You know. And they're all being shot at by the governments of those countries. You know.
Yep.
Turkey is got serious problems with the Kurds, but a lot of this here stuff, it was more or less local. But once they went in there and they wiped out Saddam, it became a problem for the whole region.
Yeah. Oh, it was Kuwait. They said that Kuwait was their 36th province or something like that, and that's the reason why they had a right to go in there and take it back.
Oh, you're talking about Iraq and Saddam.
Yeah, that was back in 91.
Well, you know what happened. They say that Saddam got in touch with one of our one of our, not representatives, but one of our people that we sent over there from the State Department, and he approached the people and he told them that Kuwait was slam drilling into his oil reserves.
That's right. Yeah.
And they told, and the guy, and he said that he wanted us to do something about it, or else he's going to have to do something about it. And the representative told him, said that wasn't none of our business, and whatever he did was all right with them. And so he invaded Kuwait. And then Bush got his, Bush is kind of tied up in shipping and all that kind of stuff too now. You know,
Yep.
they got they're in the oil and all the rest of that stuff. And Bush turned around and got the rest of the world together and said, let's go in there and straighten out Saddam. You know, and remember when they first went in there, that the vice president Cheney was talking about the war will pay for itself because we'll take their oil and sell it and make it pay for the war.
That's right.
Remember?
Yep.
And so when you think about all this, you got to put all this in. You know, there's a lot of little stuff. You know, and if you put it out on the table and look at it, you see there's all parts of the same picture. You know, there's all parts of the same puzzle. And you could see what their goals was. Their goals was to go in there and take that oil, but there was more to it than just that. You see, Saddam threatened to stop taking the dollars for his oil, and he was going to go to the euro.
That's what did him in.
That's right. and when you look at it, look at the dollar. There's trillions of them floating around Europe and the rest of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what gives us a lot of our power, too.
Well, as a reserve currency, everybody has to buy oil in the reserve currency, which is the dollar, has to be traded in that. And when I think it was Nixon was the one who spearheaded the cause of taking the dollar off of the gold standard.
Mm-hmm. And I don't blame them though, because when I remember when it was on the gold standard and the price of gold started going up, they almost cleaned out Fort Knox trying to keep it at $32 an ounce.
I don't think there's any money in Fort Knox, to be honest with you.
I don't know if there is or not.
I think there might be some gold dust in there, but I think there's a bunch of echoes going on in that place. That's why they're guarding so much, because they ain't got nothing left. They said that they gave that money over to Germany and over to European countries and businesses and stuff like that.
Well, what I hear is that a lot of it is on Wall Street. Those banks in Wall Street, and the Fed banks and stuff like that, and that actually a lot of it don't belong to us. That's right. They don't move gold from one place to another. All they do is change the label on it. They might put France or England on it or whatever. But that's how they do it nowadays. They don't move gold. They just take it and say, well, they got it in the computers, and they say, well, this here money used to belong to the United States. We got to move it over to this other column where it says France or whatever, or this rich person or that Bezos. We're moving into the Bezos column, the Amazon column. But I remember back in the late 70s when I was going to school, my economics professor had just completed his doctorate in sociology.
Yep.
And he briefed the class on the New World Order. And the things he told us about the wealth, he said, under the New World Order, people and corporations will become so rich and so powerful that they'll be richer and more powerful than whole countries. And that decisions in many countries, including this one, will be made based on what was good for these individuals and companies and not necessarily what's good for the people of the country. And I sat here and I've watched it happen all these years. And you see it becomes more and more plain every day. There's a lot of other things that he told us about war and how they would take and train the soldiers for tomorrow and all that kind of stuff. But the one thing that really sticks out in my mind is how the government is making decisions based on what's good for individuals and countries, and not necessarily what's good for this country. I mean companies, and not necessarily what's good for this country. And I've seen the progress, you know. But all you got to do is be aware of it, you know, get your facts, get your information. You can see the trend, you know. And if they don't do something soon, there will have to be. Remember back in the early 90s, I think I don't know. We talked about it, but I used to tell people that there's going to be a war,
Yeah.
a civil war in this country, and it's not going to be. You know, you think that it's going to be the blacks rising up or something like that. They'd like for the blacks to rise up because we're not armed like the whites are, and they come in there and they use it as an excuse to put us back in slavery.
Yeah.
But it's not going to be the blacks. It's going to be these rednecks that's running around, these whites. They're the ones that's the threat because they're armed to the teeth and they feel abused. And they want things to go back the way it was. When Trump is right with his slogan, "Make America Great Again," that's the way they feel. But you know, to make America great again, you got to take it back before the '60s, before the Civil Rights Movement, and all that kind of stuff.
Well, I was thinking about making America great again. It was back before 1492, and maybe even way back before then.
I guess everybody sees a different picture when they hear the words.
Yeah, make America great again. For real.
Yeah. But that's the way it is now.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, Uncle, I better let you go. I'll get back to work over here, and I will give you a call a little later on in the week.
Yeah, do that. And let me know about this here thing. You say you're going to give me an email, huh?
Yeah, I'll give you an email, and
Okay.
it will have all the Patreon information on there and stuff like that. And then you can, start donating again, which I do appreciate.
Sounds good.
All right, man. Love you there, Uncle.
I enjoyed talking with you. I love you, too.
I love you, too.
God bless.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Well, there you have it, people. This was a person who is he's about 70 years old, worked in the military, did a lot of special projects and stuff like that. And sometimes it's good to hear a fresh perspective in terms of the overall situation going on here in the United States and what's happening and what we're actually really under and what we're up against and stuff like that, right? A little bit of history doesn't hurt anybody. And we clash heads a lot, but we'll try to have him on quite often because he has a lot of good insights, and we need to hear from our elders and the things that they've seen and stuff like that. So it is very, very, very important that we get as many of our elders recorded and make sure that we really do listen to them, all right? Because the United States is in a mess. $22 trillion right now in debt, with over I believe it's 50 to 75 trillion in promised debt. And we still have a war that's getting ready to happen down there in the Caribbean with Venezuela. All kinds of stuff going on there with the trade stuff with China. China recently gave $90 billion to some African countries, and some of it was just for what? They don't know. So, but nobody does anything without a reason, right? And now when you talk about, what they're trying to give us, $300 billion in reparations, and give everybody $500 checks a month and all that other type stuff, governed by Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton, and the rest of those guys, you got to think. You got to think. You better watch our steps very carefully. Very, very, very carefully, because before you know it, this world will be bankrupt, and we're going to have absolutely nothing and no leg to stand on to do anything. So we don't have much time. Don't have much time at all. Our time is running out, and our window of opportunity is closing along with all the doors, and as soon as it does, we will be trapped again, right? So there it is. That's what it is, and this is what we talk about here in Dark Matter Radio. A lot of political stuff, a lot of different interesting things, right? But yes, your support on patreon.com/I.N.N.A or /Dark Matter Radio, Ron McLean, would be very, very, very important, and we appreciate you really supporting, right? We'll get back with you. This is Ronnie McLean for Dark Matter Radio, and we will talk to you on Thursday. A lot of great grand rising to us all. Peace be with you no matter where you may be, no matter what you might be doing or going through. Remember, you're only going through hell for the moment, and it's not permanent. just moving forward. And that's what we're doing as a people, moving forward. Peace be with you all.